Hey YouTube, it's Jenny B from jennibstudios, that's Jenny with an I, and I'm back again with another tutorial. This one is of a Misty field just up the road from where I live. So if you enjoy watching painting videos or you like to paint along, come and join us. You're more than welcome. I'm just going to rough in really nice and loose, which is one of the nice things about doing a landscape. I tend to have that more looser, spontaneous feel when I do landscapes, rather than the tighter work that gets done when I'm doing my pet portraits, for instance. This painting came about after I was driving home one morning, and I noticed that the landscape had slightly changed. I live in a beautiful part of the world. However, recent floods had altered the landscape just slightly. So this field, a couple of weeks prior to a major flood, was actually filled with cabbages. And after the flood, the landscape had changed quite a lot. It was really intriguing, and so I pulled over, grabbed my sketchbook, did a couple of loose sketches and took some photos. I'm very fortunate to live in one of the best parts of the world. Out here in the Hawkesbury, we do a lot of the growing of vegetables and fruits, etc., for the Sydney Basin area. So often we come across a lot of these fields. We're also known for our equine industry, and hopefully one day for our art. As you can see, I'm using these big bold strokes as I lay in that colours at the back. And I use a rounded motion to intermix the colours and push that pigment straight into the page. The paper I'm using is a My Tennis Touch paper. It's the Smooth Touch, which is beautiful for holding all these layers in a landscape painting. The Hawkesbury is quite an old area of New South Wales. And it's a mixture of farmland and suburbia. Out here we just call it God's country. Beautiful community feel out here. Now I'm intermixing all those colours, again using the same or similar hand motion as I go. And you can see that I'm using quite a number of my fingers as I'm smudging in the page. As I move forward, I re-establish some of those darker tones for the midground trees. And again, just nice loose strokes. The touch in which you lay your pastels and smudge it down determines how much pigment goes down onto the page and how much pigment gets forced into the tooth of the paper. Now I'm working still towards that midground, but I'm just lightly touching up a little bit more of that foggy feel. and I'm starting to get a feel for which direction this painting's moving. The fog has an effect on the light, diffusing it across the landscape, giving it that soft, surreal sort of feel. The yellow of the light is also a opposite to that purple haze that I've got throughout the fog. I'm laying in some of that gold mid-tone and coming across that with a bit of the lemon yellow. This is because of the light effect of the fog, as I mentioned earlier, but it also harmonises the painting with the colour of the trees. Remembering that the trees have changed colour due to the atmosphere and due to the flooding. Laying in the light, that's a very light yellow that I'm putting in, just a hint. Now I'm popping in some of those fog clouds. As I soften them down, I'm only softening very lightly, leaving some edges quite hard. As the fog settles onto the landscape in the background there, it becomes heavier around the trees, anchoring it to the earth. I'm constantly adjusting as I move. Taking my time to get that right feel. Now I'm laying in some of those distant trees which flow along the river that's at the back of the property. I'm using that darker brown over the darker blue to establish the bulk of the foliage on the tree. Careful to leave some spacing there for the light and for those birds to fly through. The trees at the back are actually quite soft, so softening those downs, and yet I'm making here in this foreground tree are harder lines. Those harder marks are actually establishing that it's forward. Adding some of those simple highlights. Or mid-tones, which are part of the fog. It's how the fogs actually diffuse the light through to the branches. It's necessary to keep that background soft. It's really just a shadow that you see in the background. Wonderful thing about pastel is you can lay your lights over your darks or your darks over your light, and each will give a different effect. I do prefer to work dark to light, but it depends on the effect that I'm after. Guys, if you're enjoying this video at all, don't forget to like and subscribe. I really appreciate your support. And to those who have already subscribed, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm moving forward into the foreground now, and you can see how the light just touches the fields. This close-up shot gives you an idea on the sort of work I've done, and you can see here what looks from the distance shot to be a white coloured pastel is actually quite a grey pastel, a grey blue. This little ravine or what's now a creek bed didn't exist prior to the flood. So it's interesting how much a flood can actually change the landscape. Establishing some of the darker tones for the foreground trees, and that's used with that deeper, darker green and brown, as well as the blue, the deep blue. So all on the same tonal range, just slightly different colours, which adds interest. Often if I see a part of the painting that requires attention with the same colour, I just go ahead and do it. So that's why you might see my hand moving a little bit here and there. As always, if there's anything you want to see me paint, you can add a comment down below or get in touch with me on Facebook or Instagram. That's jennibstudios, Jenny with an I. Because this field was a planting field, you still have some remnants of the rows that the plants were planted in. However, a lot of the topsoil has been taken off, and you see that underlying darker soil. Adding some of those mid-tone lights as it comes through. If you look closely, you can see how soft, as I lay this lighter colour in, how soft the marks are out and around the tree on those branches there. Just a delicate touch. And there we have it, the final painting. So a few more adjustments and away we go. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Bye!